Gabrielle and Ruby wrote this letter to push back against the widespread acceptance amongst city staff and among citizens that densification will save us all. Instead, they ask the critical questions: who matters and whose city? And they make it clear that this plan fails to meet the urgent need for fully accessible and actually affordable housing in the city. So here is the letter of dissent. Disabled people are dying due to their inability to secure housing that is affordable and accessible to them. In some cases, people are actually applying for MAID, medical assistance in death, who are not terminally ill nor near the end of life, specifically as a result of their inability to secure housing that is accessible to them. The lack of actually affordable and fully accessible housing is a human rights crisis, and we are in an emergency situation. And yet there has been no political recognition or provision of an emergency response to this fact. For this reason, we ask that the mayor and council reject the current Broadway plan. The plan includes apple pie statements about diversity, accessibility, and inclusion without any specifics. And yet, the same is not true of density. It is quite specific.
Right.
The city must include a similar level of detail about what it actually means by diversity and inclusion, and must be very specific about accessibility.
Right.
In order to prevent more unnecessary deaths, the City of Vancouver must immediately establish guidelines that go beyond the current standard for accessibility. Air conditioning must be a standard in all housing and universally applied in the same way that heating currently is. No more heat wave deaths. The City of Vancouver must also immediately adopt trauma-informed design standards for its shelters and housing and incorporate them as part of accessibility standards. The City of Vancouver must create transitional trauma-informed housing options for those transitioning from extended periods of living outdoors. A basic of housing design is emergency evacuation. It is currently legal to house disabled people in housing where they have no means of independent escape during a fire or emergency. The fire standards for housing need to be brought in line with human rights, and this must be reflected in design and accessibility standards for housing. There must be a complete citywide ban on pour doors. Protection for tenants must not only include the ability to move back at the same or lower rent, but into a space with the same amount of square footage. Moving costs for tenants must also be included. Multiple crises are overlapping and converging, and disabled people, especially those who are poor and low income, racialized and otherwise marginalized, are dying as a direct result of government policy. It is time to put policies in place that will save lives, not end them. Sincerely, Gabrielle Peters, Ruby Langan, Commissioners of the Vancouver City Planning Commission. Ruby, in a conversation, also wanted to add that we need to be targeting building at least 25% fully accessible units to make up for the lack in the present. This would also allow tenants to age in place, which is something that is often seen as a privilege only for homeowners, so that tenants can actually stay in their homes when their needs change as they age. We commend Gabrielle and